gotta get rid of though, like seriously, like, that's something that we don't even address it. I think that's something that we need.
Come today just to talk to you today about African Americans and mental health, and just the culture in general.
Sure.
But before we get started, I'd like you to just tell me something about yourself.
Cool. I am Stephen Owens. I am an associate licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia. I've been in the Atlanta area for about 11 years, and I've been a mental health counselor for 6 of those 11 years. I've served the urban community, African American typically, in the Atlanta area, providing counseling, community resource linkage.
Can you discuss why African American people, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, are apprehensive when it comes to addressing mental health issues?
I think the stigma of being considered weak for needing mental health assistance, or being considered crazy for having mental health issues, are 2 of the major things that impact African Americans, and we don't want to be associated with those 2 words. So when we can't overcome things like depression or anxiety independently, our culture throughout time has kind of looked at it as a weakness, which is really not a weakness. Mental health issues plague everybody at some point, at different degrees, and the services are needed for all cultures, especially African Americans. I also think that just historically, our trust in the medical establishment is just not something that we're just not trustworthy of, the medical establishment at this point. We think about Tuskegee, the experiment with syphilis that they did with black men, and gave them syphilis. The US government did that to us, you know what I'm saying? We think about Henrietta Lacks and Johns Hopkins Hospital, which is a world-renowned hospital, and what they did with her cells, and with really no repercussions. We think of J. Marion Sims, who is deemed the father of gynecology, and what he did to enslaved African American women, or enslaved black women, is horrific. So with those examples, we're fully aware of how the medical establishment has treated us throughout history, and we're just not really trusting of mental health services, and with good reason. So I think those are 2 of the big things that keep us from seeking those services.
My name is Lee Addison. I've been in the mental health field now close to 15 years. I started off teaching, and I thought dealing with mental health is different. Every day is different. Everybody's story is different.
Can you discuss why African American people are so apprehensive when it comes to addressing mental health?
For one, we don't know what it looks like on the other side of being healed. We don't know who to seek out. We're scared to actually confide in someone else, especially someone that does not look like you. I think that is, a major stigma. It's definitely within the black community.
Tell me a little something about yourself. How long have you been in the field?
Well, I've actually been in the field for 10 years. I started out my undergrad was in psychology. So it wasn't until after I graduated that one of my mentors was like, oh, you should really take this and go in the social work route. I had no idea it was going to bring me to where I am today. So my master's is in social work. I graduated in 2010, and I've just been rocking out ever since. So of course, myself being African American, I grew up in a household where a lot of times, we have been taught that you shouldn't go out and tell your business. Like, what happens in this house stays in this house type of situation. So a lot of people, they're not going to feel compelled to go out and tell what they consider to be a stranger things that are happening.
My name is Boris Day, and I've been practicing therapist for probably a little over 10 years. Actually, and I'm actually a fully licensed therapist, and I've been that for about 5 years now. So, and I work with populations in the community, mainly African Americans, but that's not all, but that's mainly what I do. I feel like, it's because of our history. Like for instance, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, that went on for many, many years. But I'm bringing that up because that was an experiment that actually was unethical, and it caused men of color or African American males particularly to just have a mistrust with mental health and any type of health providers. So from that was just one experiment that happened to us. But I think that and other things that has happened over time in our history that has really caused us to push away from a mistrust with the health community at large.
Do you think that stigma has gotten better, or is about the same as it always been?
So I think that now it's gotten a lot better because of, like I said, the visibility of what mental health services look like. I can credit places like Twitter, even TikTok, Facebook, for just providing us with examples of how it works for us, how mental health works for Black people. We didn't always have that. We always had the movies, and we were not usually the examples that were used in those movies and things like that. So the visibility of mental health services and how it has helped us or can help us is something that is broader now. So I think it's gotten better because of that.
So the stigma that we've had as a community, do you think that's warranted or no? Maybe,
It's learned behavior, because when you think about it, I mean, like my mother told me and my sister, her mother told her that. So I think nobody ever really took that opportunity to really kind of break it down. I think now, where we are in 2021, that you have more people are starting to get into mental health and really wanting to understand it. I think before it was just scary. If you think about it, it was scary because this vulnerable piece of a person, very intimate, it was difficult to even trust information with your family members.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You said we don't know what it looks like on the other side. So is that saying dysfunction is almost normal in some cases?
Right, because people usually don't talk about the journey of actually being healed. And that would not question anybody to ask, how did you make it through whatever you're going through? And I think that's one of the main reasons why people will be hesitant to get help.
Particularly in my particular growing up in the church, for instance, we were always told that when people were odd to pray about it. And that was as far as we had gotten. And interestingly enough, a lot of my coworkers and friends and other family members have had similar experiences.
So really, would you say, I don't know, church has been our mental health place to go? Or?
It has been our place to go, but it's been also, we haven't, unfortunately, not that church is a great thing, but unfortunately we haven't had a lot of resources outside of our faith. We haven't had a lot of professional resources up until maybe the last decade or so. Things are becoming, where people are getting more information and receiving more services and referrals. But we really, African Americans as a whole didn't really talk about mental health services, a few, like 10 years back or so.
And keeping things private, a lot of times people didn't want anything on outside of the home,
Absolutely, keeping things private due to shame, whether they were embarrassed, whether they, like I said, it just or just misunderstanding of what something really was. When it was mental health, they could have been identifying it as something else, something cultural.
Yeah, something cultural.
Yeah, something cultural.
A lot of times, yeah. Having more of us in the field too, does that help for the trust, you think, in the community?
I think so. I think it helps. We are still a very small percentage. So things like our caseloads get filled up really fast, and the Black clinicians, we're overstaffed at times, but it's good and bad. But I think that we still have some room to grow as far as more black people being in the mental health field. You know, still a very small percentage of us.
It's not a lot of faces like us. I was gonna say that because, you know, even when I got into this field, like I was very interested to see how many therapists are out there, just not even therapists, just doctors as a whole, like just in the health field. Like African Americans, we only make up like, I think it's like 3.8%. So if you don't really have somebody that you can look at and say, you know what, they look like me, they're gonna understand what I've gone through, they'll be relatable, then that's another reason why you're gonna deter from getting services.
Can you speak on some of the factors that prevent African Americans from receiving services, you know, depending on where they are?
I think one of the major barriers to getting services is just the lack of knowledge of how to initiate services. A lot of people don't know where to start. I would suggest if you have insurance, whether it be private insurance, that private insurance would be like Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Cigna. You could start by calling them. If you have state funded insurance, those are things like Medicaid, Care Source, Peach State, those things are offered in the state of Georgia. You can start there. Each county in the state of Georgia, they have something called a community service board. So even if you don't have health insurance of any kind, you can get in contact with those service boards and they'll be able to assist you with, you know, steering you in the right direction to getting whatever services you need for mental health.
That's what's up. Where do you see in the next 5 years the community going as far as having comparable services like everybody else? Do you think it would be balanced, or?
I think in 5 years it'll be more balanced. I don't know if we'll be equal. You know, like I said, the pool of black clinicians is something that's not really equal to, you know, other cultures. So we're still a very, very small percentage. I do see that growing. I know a lot of black clinicians who are in the process of becoming fully licensed, such as myself. So it's growing, and over the past 6 years it's gotten bigger. Like I said, the virtual aspect of counseling is something that is, you know, getting bigger and bigger. It's becoming more convenient. I know for me to circumvent this lack of being able to connect with our community, I plan to move to a more rural area where there are essentially no services for black people there, and, you know, start a practice there. It could be virtual, face-to-face, but I want to educate and let people in anywhere, whether it be in a big city like Atlanta or a small place, you know, like what's a small place, Savannah, outside of Savannah, that you can have access to these things, you know, whether it be virtual or going into somebody's office.
Times are changing and people are coming more aware of services available to them, and now things are free. You don't have to actually leave your environment to seek mental health. You know, it's readily available, you know, via internet, via phone. So there's definitely plenty of routes you could take to seek help.
Well, now today, which is fortunate, we can receive services right directly from our homes now, because, you know, we're doing telehealth now, and that's something that honestly 3 years ago it was just not even, I'm not gonna say it wasn't heard of, but it wasn't common. And you know, moving up to 2021, going into 2022, it has exploded. So just through telehealth services alone, we can kind of reach marginalized communities, disenfranchised communities. We can reach a lot of different communities where people don't have access to go to certain places. It may be, you know, so I think that is helping tremendously. And also I believe that people are becoming more knowledgeable and educated of what some of these mental health disorders or diseases are actually from, and a lot of them stem from environmental causes.
So is there a difference between self-care and self-diagnosis?
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Self-care is really you just taking care of yourself, taking care of your body, your mental, your physical. Self-diagnosis is you read something or you heard something on TV and you're automatically going into panic mode, or maybe you're, just because you read it, you want to say like, well, I'm depressed. And a lot of people don't understand, in order for you to be diagnosed as depressed, sometimes those symptoms has to last for a certain period of time. So there's more criteria behind diagnosing. So I'll be very careful with that, because you don't want to label yourself something that you're not.
Right,
so
right,
you know,
right.
and a lot of times you're just scared,
Right.
and it's normal.
And I think opening up to others, people are willing to help you out, but you just have to ask, and that's all I think it takes. You know,
You just have to ask.
you just have to ask.